Joining us this morning as our speaker is Kessi. Welcome, Matthew. We're very glad that you are here. Matthew is a travel writer, nature photographer, and practical mystic, passionate about helping people learn to let nature's power ignite their potential. Matthew grew up in Oregon and lives in Seattle today. He draws on spiritual intuition and a lifetime in the natural world to facilitate transformative experiences in the outdoors. Please join me in welcoming Matthew.
Thanks, Laura. Well, thank you for welcoming me here this morning. I live in Seattle, but I'm actually from a small town in this general vicinity. Have you heard of Scappoose? Have any of you heard of Scappoose? Raise your hand. Yeah. I think it's a few hills over, 1 or 2 or 3, somewhere. But I went to Camp Yamhill for outdoor school, and I grew up on this land, this part of Oregon, with a family. It's a long-standing family, Oregon family. And I grew up on a dairy farm. And I raise pigs as my 4-H project, but very much in agriculture. And so at an early age, I had access to forest and a lot more freedom to go and roam. And from about the time that I was 6 years old in the forest, I started to develop a deeper understanding of nature's intelligence. And I didn't understand where that came from, but I felt it when I would go and play with the ferns and the moss and the maple trees and all the different things that are around here. And that's where I developed the understanding of 3 key laws of nature. And the first is that nature is interdependent. Everything's interdependent. And what that means, like in human terms, is that you belong. And nature is always changing. We see that everywhere. And that's the second law. And that converts to human for you're resilient. What you can face, you can handle. And then the third natural law is that everything in nature has a purpose. So you have a purpose. And so from the time I was about 6, I had that clarity. Every time I would go into nature, I would develop that even deeper. But growing up in a big family that sometimes seemed chaotic for a little kid, I could go back to that clarity within me. That was my rock. And that would guide me through my entire life. During adolescence, when I came to the realization that I was gay and I was dealing with that, even though the external world had all these different things and narratives, I was able to find that clarity and that rock still in the natural world. And I could find my nature despite what was around me. And going into college years and then starting a job, I started a job with Alaska Airlines as a baggage handler out of college because I wanted to travel. And so I had a great career there, and even as I would travel around the world using my benefits, I still went back to that rock, that clarity when I would travel, and particularly that helped me have understanding of, in different situations all over the world, things that helped me with intuition to stay safe and to also to open up to experiences that were really rewarding and enriching for me. And so that also breathed lots of life into my experience. And then as I graduated out of baggage handling to other parts of the company, I had worked for Alaska for 25 years, I got involved in the corporate world. So I worked with corporate sales and working with companies like Nike and all the other big names. And I loved it, and I loved travel, and I still had that core within me, but I allowed the external world to take me a little bit away from my core. And it was little increments over 25 years. It wasn't all at once. But what do I need to do to please somebody, to do well, what do I need to do to earn more money, because I was in sales? What do I need to do? What do I have to tell my team? What do I need to do to, and so I had that core, but it started to get a little more murky as I moved a little bit further away. And I wasn't as grounded. And I started reacting out of fear. Fear of losing my job, fear of this, fear of that. And then I lost my job. And so that was 5 years ago, and I'd worked for this company for 25 years, and I was at a position that was very attractive to take out. And so the day after, I'm sort of reeling from this loss. And I didn't quite know what to do, but by that point, my natural instinct was to go to nature, to go find this core that I knew existed, but that still, there were some layers on top of that by this point. But I knew it existed. And so I started on a journey at that point in my life towards really finding connection back to that core, that clarity within me. And I started writing a blog about travel because I love travel, and that made sense. And then I started to realize, when people travel, they're not very grounded because by nature, you're picking up your roots and you're getting on an airplane, you're flying somewhere, you're driving, and you go somewhere that you're not necessarily familiar with. And so, of course, you're not grounded because it's a new location, a new place. So I started to write from that point of view and more in trying to weave mindfulness into that. And then, of course, nature. And then the deeper I got into that, the more I looked around and I saw the world, and I started to notice, we have an epidemic of not being grounded in our culture, in now kind of throughout the world in certain situations. And so I started to really feel what would the world look like if people were able to find grounding again, to reunite with the land? What would it look like if world leaders were grounded and they led from clarity within them and they let that be their guiding light? What would happen if that was what our world was? How could we change the trajectory for humanity and how we are interdependent with the natural world? So that started to form into a real passion for me to help as many people as possible find a connection, reuniting to the land. Because even though we're far away from that little part of our brain from 40,000 years ago when we were hunter-gatherers, studies show when you show someone a picture of a forest, they say, oh, something in the back, that little part of the brain is like, oh, safety. Because at that time, you're running away from an animal or something, you go into the forest, and people were interdependent because that's how they existed. Or a picture of water. Water might mean fish or food. It might mean just water, which is life. And so these things they're in us. They're in our nature because we're part of nature. And so it's my passion and my work now to help people find ways to reunite with the land in ways that are meaningful for them. And so I work with nature immersions, 2-hour walks. I do 3-day weekend retreats on the Olympic Peninsula, which are fantastic. And through this time working with people, I've developed, and in my daily practice, I've developed a framework of 6 steps that I find pretty much with everybody I work with is very effective to quickly help disconnect from the frenetic energy around in our culture and reunite quickly back to the earth, even if it's 2 minutes or if it's 3 days. And in that space of coming back into that clarity, and when I can help people find that, remembering that you do belong, interdependence with nature, what you can face, you can handle. Nature's always changing. And that everyone has a purpose. And it's embedded into these 6 steps. And so, do you want to know what the 6 steps are?
Yes.
Okay. So, the first step is like anything, it's about beginning well, it's about opting in and saying yes to nature. And yes, wholeheartedly. And it's maybe similar to if you go to a friend's house and you knock on the door, there's a lot of different customs, but essentially you come in with good intentions and you say, I'm coming with respect to your home. If you want me to take off your shoes, I'll take off my shoes. You might even bring a gift, depending, maybe you made cookies or something like that. So it's about coming into nature in the same way and saying, I'm coming maybe with cookies or maybe with just in good intention, but you're opting in, you're saying yes. You're making a conscious choice to say yes to be with nature, even if it's walking out to your car, or let's say after this meeting today. And when you go into nature, the second step is really to have alignment, to offer all the parts of you. So mind, heart, gut instinct, that could be thoughts, feelings. And oftentimes I find, for me, or even with people I work with, sometimes the mind is working a little bit overtime. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but it's about going in with alignment and saying, okay, hey mind, you're part of this, but let's back off a little bit. Let's let the heart, let's let instinct, let's let all these pieces exist together. So it's about being conscious of that. Some people may call that a prayer. Some people may call that an intention. Some people may just say, this is my authentic self. No matter how you look at it, it's about coming in and aligning and bringing something maybe to nature. And so just as a small example, and this is no indication about Ken, but let's say Ken and I were talking, because we talked earlier this week, so, but let's say Ken and I were talking and I left the call with just something like, oh, okay, something just wasn't quite right. And this didn't happen, but I'm just poking fun. We had a wonderful conversation this week. But let's say there's something weighing on you that doesn't feel right, and it could be whatever it is. And so an example of taking that into nature might be like going into nature and saying, hey, like with this phone call, like I thought it was right with what I was saying, but something doesn't feel, I don't know, I don't like how, and then the instinct is I feel like I need to do something and I'm not quite sure. So that's an example of maybe going into nature with something that's real in your life, a tangible thing, and saying, hey, I don't know what to do here, or I'm open to guidance. And then taking that in and being really present with that, which is the third step, is really being present with being in nature, in the natural world. Because if I come in with this, and then I'm following squirrels, or I'm all over the place, I may not have as much of that ability to go and interact with the intelligence of nature that could maybe help me with this. And then the fourth step is to slow down and to go just to find nature's pace, or to find your natural pace. And that's usually slow to medium if you look at nature in general. It's slow to medium, and a lot of times in our world today, in daily life, things move really fast. And so if you think of a natural pace, your heartbeat is a natural pace. And let's say your resting heart rate is 50, 60 beats per minute. And so that is pretty slow. If I said a word every time my heart beats, it starts to slow down. And so sometimes that feels uncomfortable, but the more you slow down, the more you're in tune to your own nature. And the more you're in tune to your nature, the more clear you are, the more you can see nature around you. And you can see a lot more things, and you can see things differently. And that goes into the fifth step, is as you slow down, you're able to see and experiencing things differently, because now you're at that core, now you're at this clarity within your own life, within your own nature. Because you're slowing down, that clarity can connect in different ways. Maybe ways you didn't even imagine were possible. And that clarity is the time that exchange can take place. And that may mean that if I'm walking on a trail and I see sword ferns, and I've slowed down, I can look at a sword fern and I might say, I've been really sharp with this call with Ken. I was like really, maybe I was jabbing or something like the sword ferns, or maybe it's time to maybe soften up a little bit. That's just an example of how that might come, what that might look like, even like a common fern. And that's when you can start to bring things into your life and reflect on that and integrate that, which is step 6. And so that might mean leaving this walk and really feeling like, yeah, I was too sharp. I probably need to call Ken and talk about that, apologize, or do something that's tangible in life. And the more you practice this, the more you get in tune to those kinds of things, and it can be even just peace. It It could be if your heart's hurting from something, from a loss. It doesn't have to be a big symbol other than just comfort and understanding, again, the three principles, that you belong, that you can face, that you can handle, and you have a purpose. And so in doing this, there's lots of benefits to daily life. There are lots of benefits to all of us with that. And it's my belief that the more people do this, the more we connect back to who we really are with our, having full clarity, the more we can impact the collective. Because I think that can happen faster than we think. I think we're told that can't happen. We have to buy into something different. But I think if we go back to our nature, that will happen faster. And I think the possibilities are brilliant. And so, with your permission, I'd like to guide you through a mini nature immersion in the interest of time. And I'll go through the steps. And I'd appreciate it if you make sure your feet are on the floor comfortably and take a deep breath. And I want you to picture a place that you love in nature and something that's accessible. So probably something in this area. It could be your yard, it could be a trail you like, or it could just be a bush somewhere that makes you happy. But just imagine that you're entering this, whatever that is, as you're entering into the home of this item. And so like I talked about, imagine that you are opting in. You're saying, yes, I'm coming with respect. I am choosing to be present here with you. And even imagine maybe if there's a gift you might want to offer or bring. It can be simple. It can just be a gesture. It can be a gift in honor of somebody. And really solidify on that nature element, that nature setting. And as you do that, move into alignment and reflect on what's on your mind and negotiate with your mind to share the stage with the heart and your instincts. But whatever you might have with you today, this is the time to bring that to this setting in nature. You might have an intention, you might have a joy. And imagine that you're aligning all those things. They all have equal parts. Your heart, your feelings, your instincts, your intuition, your thoughts. All of those things are coming together. And as you do that, imagine this setting and that you're very present there. Imagine that what your feet might feel like. Make sure you feel your feet. Take a deep breath. Imagine whatever it is in this setting, what the smells might be, or maybe the textures and the colors. And take all that in and be there. And accept that you can be there right now in this moment. And as you are present, you're going to be mindful of slowing down to nature's pace, to your natural pace. Remembering, like waves lapping on the beach, they go slow to medium. And you may imagine that you're maybe drawing a circle around you in this nature scene. And as you do that, you might even practice your natural pace. You maybe go around like a slight circle in a circular motion. Or you can imagine swaying trees and how they sway back and forth. And imagine that you're in this space, in this nature space, and you're going at this natural pace. You could go back and forth. Right there. And just feel what that pace, just note what that feels like. Is it uncomfortable? Is it natural? And just choose to take that into consideration, what your natural pace is. And as you slow down and you keep moving, because nature's not stagnant, it keeps moving. It just keeps slowing down and taking in all the parts of this nature scene. You feel your feet. Take a deep breath. And now imagine that you're slowed down, you've opted in, you're here in this nature scene, you're present. And now be mindful of all the symbols that might be there in this scene. There may be some, there may be none. You may feel sensations. There's really no right or wrong way to do this. It's just really about you and your relationship with your own nature. This is your own nature. And so track any sensations, anything, any textures, anything of note, and choose to remember that. And as you choose to remember that, remember the whole arc of this experience, how you came in, you said yes, you slowed down and you stayed present, and make any, choose to remember the sensations, the feelings, your thoughts. And as we ease out of this, I encourage you to make notes mentally, perhaps, or you could write them down. But it's possible, because we're a lot of times delayed processors, that this might spark something later on in the day or tomorrow. So just choose to allow that to happen. And as we come out of that, I want to just leave you with the three natural laws again. Everything in nature is interdependent, and so you belong. Everything in nature is constantly changing. So you're resilient. What you can face, you can handle. And everything in nature has a purpose. You have a purpose. Thank you for joining me today on this little mini immersion. And if you have any questions, conversation, or comments, or if you just want to sit, that's fine too. Ken.
Right.
You've been leading these explorations into nature with people. I'm curious about what kinds of transformations you've seen in folks.
I've seen a lot of different things take place. It depends on the amount of time. We did this in about 3 minutes, this experience. I don't know how that felt like to you, but over the 3-day weekend, I've seen people do a lot of work on their shadows to see themselves more clearly. I've seen people spark interest in new hobbies that they want to begin. A person last summer talked about how he wanted to rekindle his piano playing, and now he bought a keyboard and he plays every day. So it's really about like waking that part up, having that clarity. I've dealt with people that have loss, people who have racing brains and just want to find quiet. So it really depends, and it's really curated. It's really geared towards whoever, whatever's on the person, whatever's within the person that they want to have healing. And I've also found that, like as I mentioned, what we can face, we can handle. It's also about the timing for the people that I work with and what they're ready to handle.
I have a question. So can this be done even like in your own backyard, or do you need to like get out into nature to do this?
Nature's everywhere, and I've done this in New York City when I've gone to visit my niece, and it's concrete jungle and it's so alive, and there's a power to that too. But I've done that just walking with the trees that are trying to have life. So yeah, you have access to nature everywhere. Yeah. Sometimes it's a little more obvious in a beautiful place like this, but it's available everywhere.
Hello?
Hi.
I just remember my mother, whenever she went to the dentist, she talked about, well, they called it visualization, I guess, but she would go to the beach when she was in the dentist's office. Well, she didn't have the steps, but she was there. She was there. It was necessary.
Have you worked with children at all to do this versus adults? And if so, have you noticed there's like a natural inclination? I work with children in nature, and I find I guess I'm talking about asking a question, but I'm interested in your experience. I teach outside, and I find they're so much more calm than when I taught inside, and they have this natural inclination to do all the things you're talking about. They're more centered, they're more aligned, and which is why I do it, because they're teachers. Like, oh look, they're slowing down, taking the time, they're not worried about all the things. Have you noticed? Have you worked with children?
Yeah, I have 9 nieces and nephews that are about from the age of 4 to 14, and so and we go to the beach. My family still lives in Scappoose, so we like to go to the beach in the Oregon coast, and so usually 2 at a time. We'll go out on a walk on the beach, and by the end they're almost like sitting on the beach, just there. And so I think with less bias that comes with life, there is more of an openness to experiencing that. And so yes, I do, and I see it powerfully with kids. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, so much. Well, I want to stay in that space a little bit longer, but we do have some announcements. So at this